Okay, so we've got Kyle and Dan again now talking to us about how they progressed in differentiation. And this time we're looking at how they progressed from aware to capable. So tell us, what did your practice look like? What were we sort of dealing with when we were at aware compared with capable for differentiation?
So I mentioned in the previous video when I was talking about a comment that my mentor had made to sort of teach to the top, scaffold up, go for your highest point, aim for that. And as I said, that was really pivotal in my practice actually, and it was really important for me on that journey that I was on through aware to capable. Moving from aware to capable then was really me understanding further how to provide that for the students. At the unaware stage, I was sort of, differentiating by task, I'd say, more than anything else. Whereas after the advice I'd had from my mentor, at the capable stage, I was more able to understand how to enable all of the students in the room to achieve the same outcome, to enable everybody in the room to be able to have the same feeling of success at the end of the lesson.
And again, yes, same with me. I've gone away now, I've done my research inquiry, I've gone and collaborated with other members of staff, and again, it's a case of, but again, it's not just other members of staff, it was collaborating with the learners as I'm developing this positive professional rapport with the learners. How do they learn best? And then it gave me a real idea then of, okay, which differentiation strategies suit the learners in front of me? Because again, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Everyone learns in different ways. For me, when I was teaching my history GCSE classes, it's a mixed ability class because it's an option subject. And I found that some learners may have learned best through visual learning, some learn best through audio learning, some learn best through kinesthetic, moving about, doing different tasks. So again, it was as I'm going through the placement, as I'm going through the practice and I'm building that rapport, okay, let's try this differentiation strategy, then evaluate there, weigh the pros and cons. Did that work? Yes, okay, how can we further that? How can we develop that and not settle for that same level? If it didn't work, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. What other differentiation strategies could I use now in order to develop that and then make the impact, the desired impact and progress which I am looking for.
I think that's really important. What you've mentioned there is the point of returning back to the evaluation. What was your intention and did you actually achieve the intention? Because I think you can come up with a theory that might work, but unless you're measuring and reflecting as to whether you have actually achieved that outcome, have you actually differentiated, have you actually been successful in that endeavour? So I think you've mentioned something really important there, this key to the success really of differentiation.
And it's it's a case of, I think as well, and it's not just the work which you're seeing, but I think it's what you do behind the scenes. It's developing that classroom environment where it's positive, where everyone feels inclusive, everyone feels valued as well. Because going back to my GCSE class which I was teaching at the time, you've got an array of different learners in there. You have learners who are more able and talented. You also have learners on who are far less able, and have additional learning needs. And there's a massive gap there, and it's a case of trying to juggle between, is it stretch and challenging for my more able and talented, and is it too much for my less able? So it's, again, they all got to learn the same content, they've all got to sit the same exam. How am I as a teacher going to lift that high expectation for everyone to get to that same destination endpoint? And it was a case of looking at stuff like the seating plan. It could be a case of that evaluating assessment and looking at a past paper test and reflecting, thinking, okay, is the seating plan correct? Should I maybe role model to the less able who haven't done so well, sit them next to a more able and talented who has understood the assessment and understood the task well, where they can role model to them then? Because again, that could have benefits to the more able and talented learner, where they could then develop their own practice by maybe being that role of teaching the person next to them and teaching them the content and providing clarity rather than relying on myself as the teacher, because I might be seeing someone else. And again, I found that you have the more able and talented learner where they would be encouraging and they would be saying, all right, don't forget to add this in now, or have you thought about doing this? So again, it's building that rapport and it's building that mindset of encouragement and inclusivity, which is very, very important as well, which I found. And that has nothing to do with differentiation through tasks. That is just an environment and a mentality area as well.
I completely agree. I think a key message I got from what you just said is about being the teacher that the class in front of you needs, and not the teacher that you think that you should be or the teacher that you want to be, but the teacher that the class actually needs. I think that's an important message.
And just finally, very briefly on this, to anyone working with student teachers who are at the unaware, trying to move to the capable stage in this element of the standards, what makes the difference? Because we're looking at words for capable like mainly impactful, mainly thorough, mainly robust, mainly independent. So what can people working with student teachers do to help them if they're in this sort of tipping point from aware to capable?
I think in terms of then, like you said, that word independent, it's a case of maybe at the aware stage, I might have relied more on advice of my subject mentor. I might have relied on advice of, you know, like I said, the ALN co, TAs. Now at the capable stage, it's much more independence for myself. It's me being proactive and putting my own take onto these lessons, and it's not so much reliant on other people's advice, and it's not kind of a hand-holding. I don't like that terminology, but the hand-holding stage is much more me taking the initiative on this one and me being more innovative in a sense. That's the way I interpret that transition from aware to capable.
Yeah, I think to return to the question, obviously provide advice for people who are leading student teachers. I think an understanding of how to evaluate, to return back to that point, understanding whether something was successful, knowing how to evaluate whether your intentions were successful or not, I think is really integral here, as it is with many of the different strands as well, is what was your intention at the start and did you actually achieve it? So I think if I was to give advice to somebody leading or teaching a student teacher, it would be that thorough understanding of how to evaluate is the most important aspect, I'd say, really, alongside obviously teaching of how to scaffold in the first place, why we scaffold, so returning back to those learning theories and really making sure the student teacher understands why it is that they're doing what they're doing.